Hi, everybody. Paula Connor here with Elevate Me. I'm so excited. It's Mother's Day here in Canada, and we have some amazing guests joining us for our Divine Roundtable, the Divine Feminine Roundtable. We've got Chrissy and Tara and Nina and Magenta and myself. And who am I forgetting? Laura Eisenhower and a wonderful guest, Rebecca Parks, is joining us today, too. So it's really awesome talk. Let's check in and listen. I hope you enjoy. I had a dream this week, just on that note, and I thought at first it was like a cougar, but it wasn't. It was a lioness, and she was in her cage, and man, she was mad. She wanted out.
Well, they're going for our children, aren't they? That's why.
Yeah, I feel like the mama bear energy needs to step forth in full. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I bet you the main subject we'll have today is about an extension to the subject of sovereignty, and how far do we let this get until we actually start taking our rights back, even if
we need to do that now. I think it's gone far enough, don't you? It's gone far enough.
Yeah. Most people just don't even realize. I mean, just chatting to family members and so on, they just completely believe the mainstream media, and when people are in that narrative, they just don't believe. They just don't think there's a problem whatsoever.
The problem is they are potentially a threat to us because they're working for that regime without meaning to. I've had people say to me, just do what they want. You know, there's nothing we can do about it. So just whatever they ask, just do it. Why are you trying to find ways out of it? Just do what you're told.
But I think that's the energy of
someone I love telling me this.
No, but I feel like the more, if we try and like push something on somebody, or like, come on, you know, use that kind of any aggression or force or pushing, the more people stick their fingers in the ears, the tighter it goes in, and the more they move against.
Yes.
And so sovereignty, like you were saying, Chrissy, sovereignty is us, isn't it? Staying in our divine power, staying in the absolute love, in the grace, in the sovereignty, and just doing what we're doing as we are right now. And it's like that openness can happen. If we're moving towards somebody, they tend to move away. And it's that fighting energy just doesn't work. It is coming back. Us being in harmony, us being in balance, encouraging more, just lovingly encouraging and inviting more to participate in their own sovereignty. That's the way I think it's going to work, personally.
And that's bifurcation like you talked about. And people, I've been thinking about that a lot just over the years, just the concept of bifurcation. Some people aren't going to bend, and they are in that level of obedience. I mean, if their ability to be sovereign was really there, it would have, their inner voice would have, stepped forward and had the open mind at this stage in the game, you would think. But maybe all the videos circulating of police brutality and that woman in Australia who was taken away. I mean, I don't know how that's not penetrating people and being like, whoa. I mean, there's story after story of things that you would think would create a pause, like, wow, okay, there is this dark agenda. And I mean, people still can't even wrap their head around Project Paperclip, which is what brought this infiltration into our country in a major way, at least in the States, but all over the world it affected. I mean,
yeah, there's a real push to the synthetic, like a real push to the fake, and obviously there's been a like almost like forcing people to turn away from the real, from nature, right? Everything out there is tech, it's forced, it's synthetic, and nothing is going to open unless you get this Maxine, to use the word in code, right? What about nature? What about the mother? And this reminds me actually of the very first session I had in ayahuasca. And I know we're going to have another talk on ayahuasca directly, but in that one, it was like I was being presented with this complete fake reality. It was false. And I was like, where's the mother? Where's the real? Where's the natural?
Yeah, they're inverting all the systems. Inverting the natural systems, taking the natural world and the natural human state and trying to suppress it and repress it and recreate it.
Yeah, the vaccines recode our DNA. I mean, we would literally being modified. So when we look at some species that supposedly are future human selves, which some might agree with or not agree with, almost seems to be what a digressed human looks like after being maybe shot up, because these are all modified, genetically modified beings are the ones that are doing the abductions. So is that the future human self and the trajectory that they're trying to put us on?
It's a future human self on a timeline that we're nowhere near.
Yeah.
I had one visit me, a little girl, a couple of years ago, and she looked human, but her eyes were, there was something weird with her eyes. And she said to me, "You have to do something, otherwise we'll end up like this."
Wow. Yeah, we've all had so
We're all
many.
getting these little hints, and we all get our own personal visions about this. But then when you try to share that with people, of course, people want the science behind it. And it's very hard sometimes to be able to explain science of something, you know, that is still considered, you know, it's still in the phase of being a vision. It hasn't, you know, we can't do that yet. So what do you do then?
And talking of science, I mean, I come from a scientific family. A lot of my family members are doctors and scientists, and I was a biologist as well. I trained to be a biologist, so I did study virology, and as well as, you know, including microbiology at university. And so chatting with my scientific family and friends, I wanted to find out what, you know, the news is from their point of view, and, you know, regarding the virus. And interestingly, all the tests that have been done, especially in the UK, the tests that have been done around the UK, they're now managing to sort of plot and map, you know, how the virus is changing and mutating in different areas. So they can plot the route of that. But they've been doing testing on, you know, HCQ, hydrochloroquine, and the double-blind testing, which Fauci's been saying we haven't double-blind tested. Well, people are double-blind testing it now. And all the results are coming back that it has no beneficial effect whatsoever. So that's one point. They're also thinking that the MMR vaccine that our children are given when they're like 13 months old and then preschool, they're thinking that that's what's been protecting them. So that's the thought in the scientific field, that, oh, a vaccine has been protecting our children. It's a mixture of the measles and mumps. They think it's that combination. And another thing is that they're all just desperate to try and find the vaccine, and every scientific lab is sort of changing its, you know, dropping what it's doing to focus on the you know what for us. One really, that's kind of feels all negative from this point of view, but one really interesting point I wanted to just share was that a couple of family members, you know, who are scientists, they really said the trouble with you know, the reason we have to do these double-blind trials is because you've got to get rid of the placebo effect, because if people think something's going to work, then it does. And from a scientific point of view, that's a real, and that's a really annoying thing. But yeah, if you really believe something's going to work, then it does. Or if you know, that's mind over matter. That's creating a positive reality for oneself. That's being able to determine your own personal outcome. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that because I just thought that was interesting after my chats.
Wow.
So then they do believe it, you know, when it's a placebo effect, but anything else they don't believe. How does that work?
Yes. Yeah.
The last thing they want is for us to know the power that we have. I know people in the British military, and the way of thinking there, and obviously this is just a small handful of people. I don't know that many people in the British military, but I know some. And the way that they feel is to move forward into a tracked, microchipped, fully vaccinated society is an absolute dream come true, because there'll be no disease and there'll be no crime, and everyone will be able to be happy and get on with their lives. It's just...
I was looking at a number of interviews with Dr. Judy Mikovits. I think I'm saying her name properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is definitely an RNA interference which affects the way that our DNA works. So it is an attempt to mutate. And what I say to the folks that are listening, if you don't think that you can change the world, what about a mosquito in your room in the middle of the night? That mosquito sure changes your world, right? By its presence. And since we share a collective mind, just put your intention out that, no, I don't want to be controlled, to claim your sovereignty. They don't have to do any of that stuff. But really, it's about cleaning up their own inner world, cleaning up their own shadow self, right? And because you know, from the teachings that you've helped the world with, Magenta, I followed that integration process that's in your first book. And it works because I was shown that when I'm able to forgive someone, and even something super, super dark, as I shared a couple of weeks ago, I was moved to tap into the bottom of what they were doing, you know, the elixir that they believe that they consume that gives them power and whatnot, which of course is a perversion of the creator. And at the bottom of that, as I say, I felt this utmost desperation. But I was shown that when you can forgive something, it's not condoning what they've done. It's not saying that what they did is okay. But when you can forgive them, it lifts a shadow from the world. Like that's the work that it does for other people. And what happened to me this week, so I like to go in the bath. I'm an Epsom salts lavender everyday kind of girl. That's what I do, just to I get my crystals in there. And that's kind of where I meditate. That's where I get the best visions and guidance. And I was actually listening to Alison Coy. She dropped another video on, I think it was the path of choice or whatnot. And I was listening to that, and I, again, had an experience of, if I can say it without starting to cry, because it's so powerful. I had an experience of the mother's love being the creator. And what it felt like was there is absolutely nothing that we could ever do that would prohibit somebody from being embraced by the arms of the mother. And I started to cry in the bath because forgiveness is so needed now, as the rest of our brothers and sisters awaken to these things that we're witnessing, the police taking, you know, the mother in Australia, and it's going to get worse because this is the reckoning, right? We're just beginning to see the shadow stuff come to the public. But as it gets worse, forgiveness is going to be required. Otherwise, we're going to keep claiming the same stuff we've been claiming in this time loop, in these times past.
Okay, so am I really out of tune then if I say that when I watch a video like that and I imagine myself being there, that I can feel my body punching, you know, as in I'm like, I don't know, like, I understand the concept of forgiveness because I absolutely agree, but I can feel also a physical reaction from people at some point. And I can imagine that we're going to have some form of civil disobedience happening at some point. And I'm not promoting it, but I'm also saying not the opposite. I'm also not saying do nothing, but I can imagine that there will be some kind of, and maybe that's what they want.
I think it has to be like a tough love thing. The love is there, the unconditional love we all hold in our hearts. I mean, why are so many beings attracted to this planet? Because it's got the mother vibe, and lost children are clinging to the mother vibe, but they're not treating her correctly because they're rebellious or they're disconnected or they've been traumatized away from that source energy of the mother, the heart of the mother, which we're seeing. But so much is attracted to this planet because ultimately there's a magnetic attraction to needing that nurturing and needing that love, but they destroyed this planet so much that the mother energy wasn't able to anchor in here as much as I feel she's, you know, here now and much more present, and that's the override frequency. But yeah, so forgiveness in the unconditional love sense, but I think that warrior energy is like, it's impossible to not, because it's the guardian and protector, like, leave the sacred mother and child alone. What are you thinking? What are you doing? And they're so locked into their ego and just really getting off on this authority trip. And it's just like, how can you not question or look at it? Same with folks in the medical industry. working under these people. We have to help these people transition out of those jobs and take those skills and talents and redirect them to actually making the world a better place. But they're just in sort of that reward loop of, you know, here's the badge, here's the, you know, it's just feeding their ego. But if we could redirect these talents and abilities and these positions of service into something that actually really truly is in service, and set up some sort of big fund to help people transition out of those jobs, because really they're worried about not getting the paycheck. I mean, I almost think we have to create like a big foundation where we can help cover people's bills while they get out of these terrible toxic jobs and careers, and redirect them and inspire them to really be in true service and do their job in accordance with protecting humanity and being, but I mean, yeah. Where's their growth period? That event that takes place in their life that like blows them open. You know, it's like they're getting further and further away from those organic energies that would exist in anybody's natal chart. It's like the distraction and interference is so strong that they can literally lose the synchronicities and magical flow that can help initiate them into being a divine and sovereign being. And it's just, they're missing the mark. They're not getting those light codes. They're just getting the AI and the AI. It's crazy.
Well, what if the forgiveness is the most powerful warrior action, or a very powerful, I'm not going to say the most, but a supremely powerful warrior action, because you have to get out of your own ego so much to be able to drop into that frequency of forgiveness. And I think maybe even our understanding of what forgiveness is has been warped and twisted and misshapen, so that the vast majority of people think forgiveness is something that you do to be weak, or it means you let everybody off the hook or something.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that.
Isn't that forgiveness? When you know, I mean, we know, right, the power of forgiveness. It changes everything. Real forgiveness wipes the slate clean. Real forgiveness realigns to what's absolutely true and releases what isn't true, what was perceived as true. Real forgiveness can clean toxins out of your body, can clean all kinds of programming, conditioning, everything that's unnatural to us, that is not truly us, can get cleaned and renewed and released with transformational self-forgiveness, first of all. And when you can forgive anything within your own self, you're then forgiving all other beings, because we're not separate, we're not disconnected from one another.
That doesn't mean we have to be passive, right?
But it's not, how is it? What I'm going to say is it's not passive.
Yeah, exactly.
What
Part of doing our own shadow work is to release ourselves from the hooks of this addiction matrix and the negative ego constructs that are embedded in our culture. And it's cutting the cords because we're forgiving ourselves, which actually I think sends a vibration to that person to not be in that combat or opposition. They actually will feel that tenderness, even energetically, of like, wait a second, I'm not, you know, they're not waging war on me. They're actually forgiving, you know, and so it gives those souls permission to begin to heal from all the choices they've made that have created a lot of negative karmic loops, I would say.
Yeah, when you forgive, it does not condone their behavior, but it releases you from the tether to the attachment of their action. And then the other thing I wanted to add is that some of the themes that have come up from you this week, and Laura, I've shared a little bit of this with you, is angels in demons, not angels and demons, because there is an angel, meaning the divine, in all of those beings that are taking those actions. They've just denied it. I've got this lovely fellow that works with us, and he really is gold. And he was sharing with me that he refers to me as like his little gazoo. Do you remember the Flintstones, the little gazoo, the good guardian angel? He referred to me as that, which was really sweet. But everybody has that potential. This is the whole yin and yang, the dark and light, the shadow side, right? We have the potential to take those actions that are very low vibrational, negative, and overpowering someone else, but it's when you choose not to. That's integrating the shadow side. So why did I bring up the angels in demons? Because in spite of how people behave, the reason why they've done it is they're lost in the darkness. They've lost their way. They're being inundated with AI, or as you said, Tara, all ego mind. It's all ego. It's all the head. And it's not, they're not working with the heart, which is the real, which is the truth, which is the organic. So they're lost. And when we forgive them,
I just like to say that forgiveness is not instantaneous in
No.
the third dimension, though. It's there in the fourth, yes, and definitely in the fifth, but not in the third. So what Chrissy is saying is she's watching this video, she's watching this woman saying, don't touch my child, don't touch my son. We've got this son screaming, saying, leave my mummy alone. And we are not going to sit there and look at that and think, I totally forgive these police officers for doing this. That is insane. That does not happen in the third dimension. What we do is we feel first, that mother energy comes through, and we feel angry and we feel upset and we empathize with this woman, and we put ourselves in that same situation because we've all got children, or if we don't have children, we're still the female energy. The male energy will feel even more protective because they have a different kind of anger. The forgiveness is something that comes with the enlightenment and the spiritual path and the integration. And yes, it's there, and it's instantaneous in a non-linear way, but it isn't instantaneous in a linear sense. And we can't really expect anyone to be in a state of constant forgiveness for every action they see right now, which is taking away our liberty and stepping over our human rights on all levels, including the soul level. So we have to take action on the physical level as well as the spiritual level. And I feel this is so important.
Yep. And the analogy of it is like me breaking up with a partner. You know, I do that because I'm taking action to stop like a toxic relationship. But after this breakup, all that I'm left with is forgiveness and love. But I still have taken the action. And that is this bridging time we're in. You know, we do have to sort of still find that balance between the yin and the yang, like you say, Paula, as well.
Well, it's also the feminine can't allow this false tyranny, these false archetypes of the masculine, the so-called protector. People are still in the false archetypes of, oh, they're here to protect us. And so hopefully videos like that will really strike a person as being, this is corrupt authority, this is tyrannical authority. And I'm surprised that people don't notice how much that's been still there. The problem is history's rewritten. So people think we won the Second World War, but we really didn't. We're dealing with so much more than we can possibly imagine, layer upon layer. But it's really embracing that the balance within the divine masculine and feminine, and that patriarchal agenda. I mean, it's not gender bias. It's not like all men are, in these positions. Women, tend to take it on as well. But yeah, just these AI signals are absolutely disconnecting people from the initiations. People fear the initiations, and so when they're going through a growth period, they panic and they go on a pharmaceutical. They panic and they take a diagnosis or a label, and they're not allowing these growth periods. They're trying to mask them. They're trying to avoid them, and society is like, here, we'll help you numb it out. We'll give you something to distract you away from it. And now it's like we've missed, a lot of people have stunted their growth because they've missed those important initiations, and they keep getting more and more embedded in this stuff, or the agendas are like a tick that is absolutely sucking them dry.
Laura, I totally agree. One of my favorite jobs. I was a childbirth educator for about 10 years. I was supporting couples going through the childbirth experience in antenatal groups, and sometimes attending births and helping a little bit with the postnatal period. And that is an enormously pivotal time in a person's life, in a couple's life. And it's a time when you have to start making really sort of serious decisions on behalf of another human being, your baby. And that's where you really see quite a clear dichotomy of people, where some people really step into their own power and they start to come from a place of love. Maybe even for the first time, they sort of think about how they want to protect this baby best, and maybe explore different holistic sides of ways of doing things, a more natural way of approaching labour and birth and parenting. And others sort of step into a real fear side, where they're just thinking, I just really need to have all the tests I can get, I want all the pain relief I can get, I just want the doctor to take my baby and tell me everything's all fine with it, and I just want my baby to have all the immunizations, because it I just want to tick all the boxes, as you say. But it really creates a dichotomy. That's a time in one's life when we can really wake up, and it's a, Yeah, it's a time to just sort of think about whether you can approach something from a different point of view, and a lot of people do start to, but a lot of people almost miss that opportunity and just want to be taken by the hand and shown the way.
Ladies, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Nina.
Thank you. It's so strange. It's like something's really fighting me to not be here right now. I just wanted to jump in here because, I was living in Paris, and in this time that's happening right now, there's a lot happening in France. And 2 weeks ago, I was given a dream that I understand now was a prophetic message about the sacred divine feminine awakening and uprising. And that is very much what is being attacked through the mothers, through the children. There's a reason that they're trying to scramble the divine feminine Sophia codes of those of us that contain those frequencies through the light language, through what we planted within ourselves for this time. There's a reason they are attacking that in such a harsh manner. But the dream that I was given was, I saw, and this is the representation of, I do not feel this was just personally for me. I felt it was a representation of the divine feminine blooming through every woman and man, the divine feminine awakening on the planet. And it was so powerful. And I saw seeds that had been planted all over France and all over the world, all over the globe, were blooming in magnolia, white magnolia blossoms. And through this, through the concrete, the mother was rising up and awakening. It was so beautiful. And suddenly it was the birth of the new earth, and all of the cathedrals and churches and the Roman Empire that turned Magdalene into the whore, which she is not, was reclaiming the sacred feminine. And that is what I see is happening now in France. Many, many women are waking up all over the globe, and the sacred feminine is awakening. And so what I have really been working on in myself is forgiveness for the attack of the sacred feminine. Yes. Because they know that one of the ways to scramble us also is to make us so angry that we forget to forgive. And we have to forgive, because the forgiveness shifts the frequency and allows us to remember the sacred divine priestesses that we are. And we carry that template, and we are not able to bring that through if we're blocking our hearts, because that connection to that Lemurian, Atlantean, heaven on earth connection comes through that ability to be connected to the divine, to rise up higher, and to bring through that sacred frequency in all that we do and all that we create. So I just feel so driven to share that, because I feel that it's a huge piece of this awakening. And of course, it's what we're all being attacked in the most. Myself too, I'll be honest. In my awakening, my acceptance is that I am now being placed in a position of divorce because my French husband thinks I'm insane. So the thing is, when the divine feminine awakens, we're either going to be tried to be prosecuted and hung, or seen as the divine feminine, and we know who we are. And the more that we hold that and hold that stability together and stand up and say we are sovereign on our sacred divine femininity, and that everything is supporting that at this time. So I just, with passion and fire, had to say that.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to quickly say, are we all in agreement then that we are a combination of the warrior and the high priestess?
100%.
100%.
My heart would naturally just gravitate towards, the mother and being a guardian to her and her child, and and the anger would be coming from love, but it might not manifest that way. It's going to manifest as the warrior. Tara, you were going to say something.
I think that we all have a range of different emotions. And when we're talking about forgiveness and sovereignty, it's not to say, oh, we've got this divine state of love and bliss and light, and then the anger and the wanting to fight and the warrior is a different part. It's not. I feel like, you're completely right, Magenta. There are steps to forgiveness. It doesn't stand alone. There are elements that need to be in place for certain things to release. You need full, empowered acknowledgement, total honesty to say, this is my rage, and own it and take responsibility and feel where it comes from and be human totally, and feel the darkness, feel the connections that cause us pain, feel the rage with whatever we're looking at in front of us, and understanding that those triggers come from within us. There's a program that's deeper than the moment that is happening in the third dimension right now, and yet it's still there in the third dimension, but it's historic. We've got these triggers, these atrocities have happened time and time again, and something in us reacts to that, and we recognize it, and we recognize it as wrong. And it's so important to absolutely get fully conscious of that, and not take the painkillers, not take the happy drugs, not take the whatever, the numbing agent or the blinkers. And I guess for those of us that are willing and able to do this, because we have the warrior spirit, it takes enormous courage to go there and feel that stuff, to feel the depth of it, to feel the depth of the rage. That's not for the light-hearted. That's not for the, you know, airy fairies. It's like those of us that can do that, that have the tools, that have the soul purpose to do that, it's like there's also a trust, I feel, that, like Nina was saying, there are souls awakening on this planet, and maybe we can't see them because they're not on the news and there wasn't a Facebook post about it. But I've seen the same thing, Nina, and it started back in 2008, and Gaia was showing me the like golden flowers, her children, her pure divine children were birthing from this earth and rising, and each of us being one of those divine daughters of Gaia, one of those sovereign, you know, children who remember, who have those codes, the ambassadors on this planet. And there are more and more awakening and popping open all the time. And we can feel that connection, and we can fully acknowledge that, yes, there's been a history of total shit, but when we can see it, then we can start to unhook, whether it's from AIs or other planetary beings that are controlling, or from wherever it comes. When we first feel that, then we can unhook it, which is the forgiveness and the release. And like you said, we can go to those darkest places and forgive the darkest places that are controlling the people on the third dimension. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
I think that's what we're talking about. That's what we're doing together right now, isn't it?
Yes,
And
it
there's
is.
also a lot of police that we don't hear about that are waking up and are refusing to do all of these, you know, follow these orders. Some videos have even come out where they've said, I don't agree with it. So let's not forget that even though we see these videos popping up, who knows, there's a whole larger movement happening right now of police officers that go, hang on, we're working for the people, we're meant to be protecting them, and we're working for them. And, you know, for,
and not just police, like all of them, Chrissy, people, the politicians, everybody is. I agree.
And doctors too, doctors and nurses. Simon and I run an organisation called Connecting Consciousness. It's there's no money involved at all. People can join. We've reached about 10 to 12,000 members now, and it's growing rapidly. But it's a way of getting people to connect, people who are already awake and aware and have got all different kinds of interests, but also a lot of new people who are just waking up. They're sort of, you know, finding us and starting to join and be connected with other members in their country and other people worldwide. And it's groups like this and other groups where people are able to have a platform to just connect with others, whether it's on a forum that talks about these sort of things, that people are just starting to connect with other members of the world, other beings who are just finding out what is actually going on. And I was chatting with Magenta about this a few days ago. This inner awakening, this sudden realization that the world is not all as it seems, sort of can go hand in hand with an inner awakening that we are more than just our physical bodies, and people sort of realizing that we have a kind of inner spirit and something that's connected to source. And it's a sort of a lovely, precious thing that just needs to be nurtured at this sort of delicate time. It's not something, you know, it's a very brave soul who just sort of announced, you know, I'm newly awakened and I want to tell you all about my awakening spirituality and what I know now. A lot of people are doing this really silently and quietly and slowly and just privately, and just wanting to connect with their divine part of themselves for the first time. And I think it's also a balance of divine masculine and divine feminine, because both sides have these positive qualities. It's the negative aspects of both sides that have been causing problems for us, I think, in the past. It's the negative feminine qualities and the negative masculine qualities that have become dominant. And what we're trying to do now as a whole and as individuals is try and bring forth the positive divine feminine qualities in ourselves and the positive divine masculine. And to do that, we need to do the shadow stalking. We need to do our reflection in action and on action. We need to think about how we're relating to other people on a day-to-day basis. And could we have dealt with that differently? What is it that's triggering us? How would we like to be able to relate to people and relate to ourselves in future? And I think it's those kind of things that's part of this awakening.
Yeah, I mean, we're here for soul development, spiritual development, to not be looping in this reincarnation cycle. We're learning the right use of power. We've been given the gift of ego to be able to align it with what is in integrity and you know, the soul matrix and the unified field, the 0 point source energy. I mean, these are everything that we're up against is always to guide us back, even if it's horrendously adverse. There's that guiding principle, because the cosmic and natural laws are encoded with restoring balance, healing, transformation, alchemy. It's encoded in the natural world. But we have to understand that the small percentage of the dark lords that are sort of being the puppeteers of a lot of the most corrupt part of it, they're the ones that are wrapped up in the ritual abuse. They're the ones that potentially are the trauma-based mind control ones that are operating on altars, and they're not even in possession of themselves. So it's like the mother has unconditional love, but also is able to see enough of the, you know, larger picture to also recognize the level of evil acts to traumatize a person to be able to even begin to hold that kind of role in the world. That we're not dealing with somebody who's just going to all of a sudden snap out of it and get out of the ego. They're actually dealing with multiple altars, and that's going to be a real tough pill for people to swallow. Like, you know, people like us, we've gone down those rabbit holes. We understand that, but we need to begin to, you know who's who and who's operating from that level. And then those that are being pulled into it and brainwashed or blackmailed or just propped up and where yeah, it's a human that's getting caught in the ego trap. But there's a percentage though that aren't even really operating as a human in the way that we would understand a human's capable of healing, because they've got so many splits. You know what I mean?
I also think that the public, the sleepers, need to be shown the plan. They need to be shown what's going on rather than be told. So all these posts and links, it can just sort of become so overwhelming. I had a friend say to me the other day, I've absolutely had enough. I'm sick of it. I don't want to hear about it. And I'm thinking, well, you can't really get away from it because it's kind of everywhere. But I understood what she was saying. And I think what's happening right now is things are occurring to show to the people the dark plan, which is why it seems so dreadful, because it's everywhere. But the only way these people are going to wake up and see is to actually see it. So, like, for example, I think that Donald Trump, rather than stepping in and saying, right, I'm the president and this is what you're all going to do, he is repeatedly saying, well, it's up to the governor. It's up to the state governor. He's giving them the chance to show to their state how they handle that power. And he's giving them the chance to either shine within the light or present a tyrannical darkness. And I think the same thing is happening, like with the lady that was arrested with the child. People are seeing this, and unfortunately the only way that that's going to happen is some people are going to be in some way bought into this dark plan and have that come at them in order for them to be able to tell their story. For example, this lady now is able to stand up. She's got some legal help from all over the world. She can now take the police officers to court and she can tell her story. And Paula, you mentioned Dr. Mikovich, or Mikovich, however it's pronounced, but she must have been through an absolutely dreadful time when all this happens. But now she's able to step forward and tell her story. And you can actually see how fearful the deep state dark players are, because they're constantly trying to cover up all these little whistleblowers everywhere. They've got all these bottles with all these genies out, and they can't put the genies back in all the bottles, and they're trying to mitigate all the damage. And the Great Awakening is still happening regardless of what they're doing.
And an even bigger positive is General Flynn being having the charges quashed, because you know, it's now come to light that the FBI withheld information. So that's something that, you know, overcoming a negative aspect of the cabal. This is another plus, along with Donald Trump holding money from the WHO and so on. There's these little steps. It's baby steps that are in the right direction that make me think, you know, or sometimes big steps that make me think, yeah, we are heading in the right direction.
Oh, a video just came out of somebody challenging Dr. Judy. It was another doctor named Dog, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but he was, you know, a medical doctor, very much in the conventional narrative mindset, or what they're trying to make seem to be conventional. He absolutely was slamming her, calling everybody stupid. I don't know if you guys saw it.
Yeah, I saw
but there was more dislikes than likes. And sometimes, you know, I'll just go on Twitter and go to a Bill Gates post, and literally 1 out of 100 is maybe a decent, nice, respectful comment. The rest of it is just like memes, and, you know, your days are, I mean, they don't have the human support. So enough awakening has happened for people to not be duped and just be like, oh, okay, whatever you say. I mean, the wave and the rush of this level of communication and action from people just in comments and threads is unbelievable. And the amount of dislikes on that video was really encouraging. So that wave of energy is going to increase and continue, because they're further shooting themselves in the foot. And in adversity, we either blossom or we crumble. And soul knows how to blossom, and that's what we're made of. That's what ascension is. That's what these times are all about. Yeah.
Else. Go ahead, Paula.
I was just going to say, just to add, so what I heard Judy talking about is she was talking about these scientists, and it came up with her about forgiveness, because these scientists have been working in labs doing what they thought was for the greater good, and they discover that this is completely inappropriate. So she talked about, you know, these scientists that wake up even need to forgive themselves for getting duped into doing it. And the other thing I really, really applaud her for sharing is because, so I think that, you know, the big red pill for the public is big pharma. The corruption around profit at all costs, profit over people. That's like the first part, because we have to kind of slow walk them to, you know, the deeper, darker stuff, right? Because if you go straight there, they're not going to be able to. They'll just like, I can't deal. So you have to slow walk them. So big pharma is the first part. But she said, you know, true freedom in healthcare is a human being able to choose what they want. If they want to work with an energy healer and it be part of our healthcare system, if I want to work with acupuncture and chiropractor and energy work, I don't need a conventional GP. But if I want to take a pharmaceutical because I need to, that should also be my free will choice and how I support the well-being of my own body. And then just to end that, you guys know JP Spears, the comedian?
Yeah.
He did a really, really good, you know, why you should totally listen to the media or not. It went viral, and actually there's a lot of truth in that.
Amazing. He's fantastic. I've followed him for ages.
Yeah.
And everything, all of his videos are massively teaching through humor. And, you know, we try and look through his stuff 2 or 3 times a week and watch something, because they are absolutely fantastic and such high level intelligent humor. And he's right, and the media is a massive key. As long as that media is standing up in this service to self-control, yes, we've got the back door from all the alternative media, but that's not reaching the die-hard sleepers that believe the narrative. Only when the media starts to turn or wake up or in some way crumble and we can start coming in, that's when things will change hugely.
Fox News has been doing it of recent.
Yes.
I've watched videos where they've I couldn't believe actually what I saw.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Does anybody know why Fox is suddenly?
They've been bringing out truth for quite a while. If you look at Tucker Carlson, Hannity, and Jeannie Pirro, those three have been speaking truth for a few years now. I mean, Tucker Carlson is massively on the side of the light. So yeah, Fox News. There's another one I noticed that's starting to present truth and genuine information, and is it One American News Network?
I think it's OAN. Yeah, OAN.
Yeah. OAN.
Just what happened with, I think it was Hannity, was through the Q drops, they found out that they were being spied on too.
Yeah.
Even in the media, they were being surveilled or what have you.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioned General Flynn, Becky, and Fox News, as far as I can see, are the only ones that have accurately covered this story and given it the airtime that it needs. We know why, of course.
Really, isn't it? Because it's a big story, and hopefully more charges will be quashed against others, and so this is going to be a growing story. So, fingers crossed, we'll watch that.
Yeah, you gotta wonder why CNN would be available at 4:00 in the morning to take. Was it Roger Stone, who was one of his aides, who got like more time in prison than Epstein did for lying to the FBI, which he was completely set up. But isn't that interesting how the CNN is available and they take him out of his bed at gunpoint, whereas he would have walked out the door quite easily.
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious that the mainstream media is so corrupt and so paid off. And I think we're going to start seeing proof of that too. The financial transactions that are going to demonstrate to people, to show, to your point, Magenta, it's much easier to show people.
Yeah.
So it's happening.
Yeah.
It's interesting your point what you're saying about the media. So I can see that as a major one, the media being a real block. And other thing I'm really noticing, and that's why I wrote a post about it on Facebook, is I call it mindfuckery. It's where people go into this thing where they want to share their truth with everyone, and they don't understand that they're in a rabbit hole themselves. And this is very typical fourth dimensional, where there's so many different realities happening all at once. And so we're spending all of our energy trying to persuade others that my truth is really the one. And then someone else goes with a very, very valid point. No, but actually when you look at it like this, and it's taking so much of people's energies that they're completely not aligned anymore to that space, whatever you want to call it, the divine heart space or whatever. So that's another one that I find a real tricky part.
It's happening especially at the moment. A lot of people are getting lost in the narrative because there's just so many narratives going on, so many different stories about what's going on at the moment. Is there a virus? Is it really a virus? And what happened? And there's a lot of narrative around this, and it is important to spend time away from this kind of news and to spend time just focusing on your own self and tuning into your own inner truth and how you feel about things and so on, because it's difficult to discern what is actually truth when it's just carry on. Sorry.
Like it's a frequency. It's our authenticity. It's our ability to just be present with ourselves and share without having an expectation of swaying people to believe. It's like we need to harmonize together. We need to play music together like an orchestra, and we might not be in the same seat. We might have different instruments, but it doesn't matter. We need to create harmony, and that comes through the truth frequency. The prerequisite to unity consciousness has to be first claiming our authenticity and sovereignty, or else we're not really adding anything. We're just operating from a program, and we're spreading that virus to others, or we're impacting their energy field because it's not in resonance with truth. So truth frequency to me, is if we could all claim just our own internal truth and share, the frequency that comes out will also ignite other people's sovereignty. And we can, without sort of the ego needing to be right or pushing the opinion and trying to sway people, we can just be like, oh, cool, and just make more music together. And if there are extreme differences and somebody's, in that level of opposition, I'm seeing more and more people surrounding a person and giving them love instead of, I kind of dealt with a bit of attack recently, and I know Nina, you were on the thread, and it was kind of like, and I was like, man, I'm just like too tired right now to deal with this, but it all worked out and it was all forgiving and good. But, you know, it's like just remembering, I don't know, like you're saying, to do the inner work, to find, you know, that frequency also, so that we can see through the lies and deceptions. And then we can begin to build community again, and not, just be expressing what the rabbit hole looks like, because we're multidimensional beings. Even power versus force, the spectrum of frequency connected to the different energy, you know, that we're connecting with based on our, you know, frequency does have different timelines attached to it. Not every single one of them, but the huge bands of, you know, timelines connect very much to these harmonic universes that are encoded in our DNA. And some people are already operating from those higher levels, having a tough time, you know, being grounded. I mean, so anyway, the unity consciousness is, we're here to switch each other on, not crush each other and try and be right.
Absolutely. And this is the thing I noticed, you know, on Facebook, is that there's these complete character assassinations happening. You know, someone like David Icke, whom I respect a lot. And I might not agree with everything, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I will dedicate an entire post to character assassinate him. You know, and this is typical, that we then feel the need to be really black and white about it, you know. So he's conspiracy theorist, that's it. Instead of looking at, hey, what is he bringing to the table within the authenticity from the authentic place that he's in? And this is what I'm hoping to see more of, you know, that we're seeing those little authentic bits in each one and celebrate.
What I see happening is that with the mainstream news and media, it's like they're revealing the spells right before they're broken. And people need to be able to see those spells and understand they've been cast under these spells, or these sort of alter spells that are affecting them on an astral level, which is harvesting off of their energy fields, which is attacking their sexuality, which is perverting their sexuality, which is getting them to do things in sort of a fallen angel manner when they actually are indeed an angel. But what I'm seeing happening right now is that right before a huge amount of spells are broken, because the frequency is shifting so much, they're revealing the spell in such an intense manner that no one can deny it. And so even the people that are really sleepwalking right now are suddenly going, what I'm getting calls about are from people all over the world going, I'm being attacked by demons. Oh my God, Nina, I'm in hell. And I'm like, you're waking up is what's happening. And it's an amplification of you seeing that you have actually been in an astral cage. You're waking up in the matrix. And this is a good thing. And it's going to be happening a lot more. We're going to come into a time very soon. It's already happening where people are going to be seeing angels and demons, because it's an amplification of the frequency that you are existing in and the karma that you're putting out, so that you know, because we have to know the truth. And that is part of free will. That is part of sovereignty. That is part of people waking up and going, whoa, I had no idea I was being used in this manner. I had no idea this is what I was choosing. No, I'm going to run in the direction of heaven, which is the Pleiadian prophecy being fulfilled. So they're actually assisting the process, is what I keep going, wow, thank you so much for exposing all of the darkness.
Yes.
We just have to be senior to these lower beings, but we have to face them to be able to become senior to them, because in a lot of ways, they're the catalyst that's pushing us to our greatness. And these are elements of ourselves, yes, that have hooked in, and yes, and then the integration of polarity begins to dissolve us, that duality. I mean, the integration of polarity is what's going to take us to the next level. And yes, more ability to see and recognize, because people who are unconscious and asleep don't realize that that's a form of attack they haven't woken up to yet. So yeah, that was really well put. Yeah.
And as they wake up, they'll become more clairsentient and clairaudient and clairvoyant. They're going to suddenly waken up to realms and things that they've never been aware of before. And it'll be exciting, it'll be frightening, but it is just part of the awakening process. It's stuff that's been there all the time. They just haven't been able to see it, hear it, feel it. So
and on that note, Becky, that's the thing with discerning truth. People have forgotten how does this feel? Like, ooh, this doesn't feel right. Like, it feels icky if there's lies or whatnot, right? And Magenta, you did a really good teaching many years ago, I think, on teaching people how to discern truth, right? And I think you were using, what's your name?
Yeah.
What's not, you're like, tell yourself something that you know is the truth, so you get an idea of what it feels like, and then tell yourself a lie. And I think that's the big problem. People they don't want to feel this shit, man. It's too heavy.
Yeah, I used to have clients come to me and I would do that exercise with them. Many were already in that resonance, but some would be, oh, I know what you're trying to tell me. And they hadn't, even though they were spiritually aware and they were on this path, they hadn't quite brought that into the heart and into the resonance to be able to discern the difference between ultimately falsehoods and truth, which is service to self and service to others. Once you get to that place, you can see very clearly the game. You can see what is being done. You can work out where the dark energies are, where the light energies are, and what percentage of both of those are working. And you can shift between the dimensions. You can move into the fifth dimension where there is no polarity like that. The polarities are both beautiful, love and light. You can stay there. There are a lot of people I know that are doing that are moving to the fifth dimension and remaining in that place simply because the third is so dense and uncomfortable right now and so full of fear. And the fourth, as you said, Chrissy, is just full of chaos. But the ascension process can't occur unless those who are multidimensional and can anchor fifth dimensional frequencies can move down into the third and the fourth and be there. And I think that looking at the fears and where the fears are coming from and looking behind them and looking at the agendas, and is this something that's been presented to literally create fear, or is it a genuine plot within that dark plan? You have to try and work these things out. For example, one of the biggest fears right now, it was the vaccines and still is, I know, but lately, especially in the UK Commonwealth countries, now I noticed a similar fear coming up in California as of yesterday, and that is the fact that the police, the governments, and the the health authorities have got the ability to come into our houses. So I have a lot of people saying, well, as long as I'm safe in my own bubble, as long as I'm safe in the house, I can just watch this play out as an observer. But now they're coming in with these threats under the guise of safety that they can come into your house and remove family members. So if we have a mother and child, they're separating them. Mother will test positive and the child will test negative, so they need to remove the child, so the child is away from the mother and doesn't get infected until the mother recovers. It's all done under the guise of safety, but really what this is about is using your loved ones as leverage against you. And that is going right back to what we were first speaking about, the mother energy. The mother energy will do anything to protect their child. So if it means having a vaccine or a micro in your arm or whatever, you will be pushed into wanting to do that to get back with your child, because that protective feeling is brought in. Now, do I think this is going to happen on a grand scale? No, because so much else is occurring at the same time. But I do see little pockets of this happening in smaller areas, because the plan needs to be shown to the people, and the only way it can be shown to the people is if individuals go through it. I would like to be able to come together with the divine feminine and move into a space where it doesn't happen at all. And that is also a potential. As you probably are all aware, the potentials for reading the timelines right now are very difficult because they're moving so fast, and there are so many different potentials coming in from service to self, all the different ways that they could implement the New World Order, and then coming in from service to others, all the different ways that we can work with our forgiveness, our gratitude, our fifth dimensional energy, and our healing. And everything is sort of imploding together as we come towards this convergence.
Yeah, we have to remember, though, it is inevitable that we will rise.
Oh, yes.
Everybody listening, like, it is done. Humanity, no matter what they see, we have decided as a collective that we will no longer agree to lies, and that we will move forward.
Yeah, it's an absolute done deal. That is an inevitability. the higher energies, the service to others energetics rise, and we move into the ascension. Is absolutely going to happen no matter which timeline you go down. What I'm looking at is the roads to get there.
Yeah.
And some of these roads can be fairly pleasant for some people as they sit within the observer space. But then you have these fears coming in when even the observer space is threatened. So then you have to work with those potential fears. Are they just threats, or are they actually part of the agenda? And we're looking at all the different countries on this planet when each part of that service to self structure is presenting the same agenda and the same plan in a slightly different way within each country, just to try to make the sleepers think that each country is operating differently and that they're all completely independent, when really we know that that is the same energy and it's the same agenda. So yes, I'm just looking at the roads there, but you're absolutely right. There is no question that the ascension process will take place on this planet.
It's
And
funny when you get flashes of that reality. I had it the other day, just washing my hands in the toilet. It always happens in the toilet.
Yeah,
For some
it's
reason.
water. It's
No,
water.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It just overwhelmed me, and I suddenly went, oh my God, why am I even so worried? Because I could see the energy of the outcome, and it was so expanded that whatever we're going through right now felt like just a little thing, you know, whereas we're making it so huge right now. But at the end, we will look back and go, okay, that's the friction we needed in order to expand that consciousness.
Yeah, and I want to add, what I wanted to add there, what you were saying, Magenta, is the creepy factor is rising, because there was a small little snippet of Justin Trudeau, our PM, and he was like, okay, moms, step out of the room. I want to talk to your kids for a minute. I'll wait. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, so Mama Bear, right? Mama Bear is like, I will take you down. You know, don't you touch those.
Oh, yeah.
children. Like,
Yeah.
Ultimately, isn't that what helps to create unity? Because there is nowhere to hide. No one can hide. You can't just go and live in a little tiny pocket somewhere and ignore it.
No.
Like every stone unturned, and that's what we were promised, and that's what we chose. We need that. It needs to be every single person, and we know that like attracts like. We know that what we give out, we get back. We know that our own triggers lie inside of us, our fear buttons waiting to get pushed by somebody and activate into this reality so that we can deal with it. So when somebody is getting a personal attack, that trigger within them is sitting there waiting for that moment to get triggered so that it can be revealed and there's no more hiding from ourselves, right? So our own personal trigger buttons are getting pushed, and we've all got some common ones and we've all got some deeply unique ones, right? Then we're all going to get our buttons pushed.
Yeah.
And those buttons are in the blueprint. They have been for an incredibly long time, except our ancestors and whatever have been skirting around it. And here we're going, oh, I'm triggered. That's the initial reaction, is trigger. And then of course we have the consciousness to deal with those triggers. And of course then we, you know, we release and we heal and we come into these wider awakenings. But every single person has to go through that. Nobody can bypass the being triggered and freaking out part and realizing that that's within us, and we're attracting that because that's what we've given out. That's our story of our soul that's playing out right now on the end game. You know, I see it as like the last soul kind of, maybe this is just me. I don't think this is just me. I think it's probably a lot of us, but like playing out the last lifetime in a huge soul cycle.
Exactly.
When now, and it's like when the end meets the beginning, like the serpent eating its tail, and all loose ends get tied up, cycles within cycles within cycles, lifetimes, all kinds of things get tied up now.
Yeah.
This is why there's so many of us alive on this planet, because in our soul we chose to be here to do this, to tie up all our soul cycles, all our lifetime cycles, all our karmic cycles, all our triggers, and come to peace with all of it. And so it does look like chaos, because we're all in this pit of our own creation and our own history materializing in front of our eyes, and we're all having to go, this is my responsibility. There is no us and them and me and them. There is, we did this.
Yeah.
We are doing this. And if you like, if anything for supporting is being like that midwife to know that some people are going to need a hand to get through this. I mean, not some people, all of us, right? We had hands to get where we are now. We had support, we had guidance, we had help, we had midwifery through our own lifetime awakening, or soul time awakening even. Some of us remember, you know, many lifetimes of doing this kind of thing. And it's like, there's been support and help for every single one of us. So why wouldn't there be help and support for every single other one of us out there having to relive and reawaken and take responsibility for their history? And ultimately, I'm just going to finish by sharing this, is like, as you've been saying, it is a done deal. And talking about the mother, her will trumps the child's will. The divine mother, her will, she told me this years ago, she said, you all have free will. It's a God-given gift, or a giver, it's a life-given gift. It's been bestowed. It's something that you have as a gift. But the only one that can take that, can trump, not take it away, but to trump our own human free will, is the divine mother. When she says, okay, enough kids, that's enough. You come home to me. You come back to where you're safe.
And that's
So like, that's playing out. That is happening.
yeah.
Her will is saying, right, I love myself enough as a divine goddess being. I'm listening to her saying, I love myself enough to allow no more of this. I am coming into wholeness and integrity. I'm coming into my full power. I'm going to show you my full power. But for that time where I wasn't, it was for you to have a free will and to play out all these dramas and discover what you are and what you're not, and what you love and what you don't love, and discover your full range of expression. And I was just sitting there peacefully or quietly letting you get on with it. And now she's like, no, everything comes back to me. Everything comes back to love. Everything comes back to the truth. And that is happening. And meanwhile, we get to have these wonderful experiences of realizing ourselves and freaking out and going, and it's true, we all have to go through that phase. It's an important part of the awakening.
And we're busting through seals that have been put in our DNA. I mean, we've been in this tree of knowledge, duality, needing to find self-knowledge, needing to connect with the truth of who we really are and what we're made of. We're rebuilding the architecture of our DNA in the true tree of life template, not the artificial version and the 10 sphere version, which is draconian, and connecting, the grids through our own being. The earth has no choice but to respond to us. So as we move through these seals and these fences that were put in place, we face the gatekeepers. And every time we're about to take a huge leap as a humanity, that's when the next false flag comes in to say, okay, no, but it presents us with a choice. In order to begin to unscramble those fire codes is to shift the chaos on the planet into global unity and harmony amongst each other. And so the lessons we have to learn is how we deal with one another and how we allow that, greater power within ourselves to bust through these fences. And like a spiritual athlete will see that as an obstacle course to overcome and get over, but other people see the obstacle as another opportunity to give that power away and continue to give that power away. But, this is a reunion with the true source, within ourselves. And then the tree of life is restored. We're grounded with the earth. Our branches are open, and then circulation with the ether begins to purify our DNA. And so this is the gatekeeper we're busting through right now, who happens to be connected with the name Gates. But yes, there are many on the planet that have already poked through the net and are bringing this energy, into the planet. And as that grows, it will override the system, just like the immune system can wipe out disease in our body. But we need to load up our bodies with all the different things that are going to protect us from radiation and 5G, and know that, the medicines of the earth can help to heal our DNA. So even if people end up taking a vaccination, that there are medicines that can help to repair. And so that has to be, really emphasized and put out there, how we can heal, our DNA with plant medicines and herbs. In the event that a lot of people do end up deciding that they take the vaccination, they're not totally screwed. There needs to be a next wave of education of how to mitigate the harmful effects, because they might wake up after the fact. I feel like an awake person can never be mind controlled. Once you're awake, you're not in that field anymore, and you can bust and neutralize these attacks. That's why some people are waking up despite the fact that they've been inhaling nanoparticles from chemtrails, and other people are actually being very, very compromised by what they've been inhaling. But an awake person has that immunity already, because their mind has overcome the entanglement of mind control and social engineering. And so it'll offset a lot of this as that, continues to grow. But those that are buying into the bait and buying into the programming have much more of a toxic reaction to these attempts to hold us down because their mind hasn't freed itself yet.
Absolutely. In the past week, I love what you're saying, Laura, because it's just a total affirmation. In the past week, every client that I've had has been a sister that is awakening, who her guides have come in and said, okay, it's time for you to come forward. It's time for you to share your gifts. And also within that, I knew there would start being triggers upon the divine feminine. And so, of course, now that's what they started doing. We're going to take away the children from the mother. And you're seeing these women that are going and protesting and standing up, and they're getting attacked. And what I realized is they also know our deepest collective triggers. So they know that all of us that have played these roles of the divine feminine, that have stood up, have been torn from our children, have been imprisoned, have died, have played the role of the martyr. And that's not who we are anymore, and that's not what we're playing. But what they're doing is they're triggering that trauma in the sacred feminine and those who hold the sacred feminine template so that they don't stand up and so that they get scared. And it's actually causing the catalyst for the awakening. And that's what we have to remember, is that just as they're trying so hard to stop us, they're actually pushing us forward.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
It's backfiring on them. Everything they're doing is backfiring. Everything they try to hold back and to mitigate actually creates the awakening. And if you look at so many sci-fi films, it's a similar story. When time travel is involved, often the storyline will be, this thing is going to happen, this thing is going to happen, and we must prevent it. And the whole film is about preventing it. And then right at the very end, the very prevention of the thing is what actually creates the thing in the sci-fi. And that's what's happening. Yes, definitely. It's funny though, Laura, that you said that when you said about the gates, the gatekeeper, and that there's somebody with the name Gates, we also have someone on the light team with the name Trump. And you were saying, Tara, about how one thing can trump another. So how funny he has the surname Trump.
I know. Isn't that wild? The Trump card and then the Gates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really important. Sorry, love. Well, I think it's really important. Just to kind of emphasize that again, what you said, because some of us, that was my biggest fear that I've had for years, that somebody could come into my house and force my children to have a vaccination against my or their will, because I've never been vaccinated. My kids have never been vaccinated. And I was just like, over my dead body about it.
Yeah.
So I had to go to that fear in my mind, replay it, and get unafraid by by dealing with my own trigger, my own fear. Because as we know, we manifest our fears, and I don't want to manifest my fear. I want to, right? I know when I've done it in the past and I didn't want to do it now. But it's also brilliant, Laura, that you said actually nature and medicines are going to be there and are there right now that will strengthen us against the vaccine. So we're not all doomed. It's not the end of the world if that happens, because if that is a lot of other people's fear, that is like worst case scenario, and then we're all freaking out about that, and with our minds making it, adding to the fear and adding to the possibility of us creating it because we're afraid of that. Do you know what I mean? Actually, you saying that just neutralizes it and goes, no, there's always going to be another way. And I know that, like our immune systems, when we have a threat to the immune system, the immune system receives that threat, reads it, and then adapts very quickly, sometimes literally immediately. Right, if we could see the rate, and scientists can, I'm sure, Rebecca, you can say something about this, about how quickly the body will recognize what's attacking, what's not supposed to be there, and adapt to overcome it. And what I see in our blueprint, in our DNA, is actually this adaptogenic ability. So the biggest threat, maybe the biggest threat is Wi-Fi, the biggest threat is this vaccine, or whatever the, not Wi-Fi, 5G, or whatever the biggest threat is, that our bodies are reading these signals that we're sending them right now, and that we are adapting. Our codes are in our DNA already to adapt to this, and to actually almost accelerate our transformation, our what's the word I'm looking for? Evolution, that's the word.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can just Google, oh, sorry, Paula, one sec. If anybody just Googles what herbs can protect my DNA, astragalus, you know, turmeric. I mean, we can protect our DNA, because even if we don't get the vaccinations, we're still dealing with a lot of interferences and a lot of these dark technologies, and we can absolutely protect ourselves. Sorry, go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, I just want to add that we cannot forget the fact that the mother energy of the planet is here to support us too. I watched a little video yesterday of the birds ripping apart a 5G tower.
Yeah.
So I feel like I feel like there's a lot more nature hanging out in my yard, like the birds. It's like they know what's up.
Yeah.
And as the frequency of the planet, I think we hit like 92 yesterday with the Schumann resonance or something. As the planet continues to raise the vibration, those folks that are engaged in those lower vibe, I think they're going to vibrate themselves into like a major disease or vibrational suicide, because they just can't stay in the love frequency, which is like nature's here, and she's like, back the hell off our babies.
Yeah.
And I think the negative entity, the cabal, they've increased the level of fear, or they're trying to work with the level of fear so much. What they're most frightened of is people waking up. We're doing that. You know, their worst nightmare is coming true. They're trying desperately hard to clamp down harder with laws, legislation, lies, deceit, and it is backfiring on them, because we are waking up nonetheless. And those of us that are awakened are being able to express what's happening. We're being able to point out, look what's just happened there, look what's just happened there. And that is just, it is causing a mass awakening. We're on the rising curve of that. And they're not going to be able to stop us waking up.
No.
We have to remember that it is already finished. So when we're going into 4D, when we're going into 3D, we're taking that with us. We're taking that vibration of future proofs past. I already know that Mother, Father, God wins. So I'm not going into this buying into your storyline or your fear template. I'm going in to stand in the stable frequency of this is finished for all others who are still learning to maintain that frequency. And that's really how we are, like, as you said, Magenta, those pillars of light in that Excalibur codex.
Yes.
So it's almost like we're walking through, as you say that, I'm being given an image of, it's like we're walking through a city street and it's crumbling behind us, you know, like, so we know what the end game is. It's already done. It is the evolution of humanity. We are going to reach a new octave, because I've had experiences where I'm looking at something and it's complete vibration. Like it's like, it's like I can see all of the molecules. And so this chaos that we're witnessing, for me, it feels like everything's kind of like in flux, and then it's going to magnetize and be in the new reality. And we're just walking through the destruction and the crumbling. So it's almost like, yay, the financial institutions just collapse. That's awesome. We could rebuild them.
There are a lot of really amazing things happening right now. And I don't know if any of you have noticed, but when I'm just walking through nature, I'm already feeling the shift has already taken place to a large extent, that everything feels less solid already, and there's a softness. Even in the weather, I'm noticing a softness. I don't know if that's the same in other places.
Yes.
Something I wanted to say as well is that I've recently been meeting these women, sometimes randomly and sometimes because they've contacted me. And I recently visited one woman, and she was just living in the forest in a little cabin, and she's like a birthing and death doula. And I entered her land, and I was going into this energy thinking, wow, this woman, you know, she's not known, you know, and she's just sitting here doing this amazing gift for humanity, and nobody knows about it because we haven't been taught, you know, how to, you know, how important these things are. And I really just want to invite women like these who are not necessarily, you know, out there on social media promoting their stuff, but who are the real forces to be reckoned with. I really want to invite them as well to come together with their groups and film their circles, their roundtables. And we're going to put a link underneath our video of a channel that I've created on YouTube for women's roundtables, so that we can hopefully start a bit of a movement and let these women come out of their, you know, their hidden places.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I've been called to do that, to just bring the divine feminine together and present some connections with other women. I'd love to hear as well from people who are living off grid in a tiny house or in a caravan or whatever, and they are living off the land, self-sustained, because they already are in the new earth. They're already doing they're already creating the infrastructure for the new earth. They kind of got it right whenever they felt called to get off grid and become self-sufficient. They are probably in the absolute best place right now. I mean, I know we're all in our roles and we're all in the places we're meant to be, but from a third dimensional point of view, they're the people that seem to have found where to go. I don't see how these individuals can possibly be targeted in the same way when they are off grid.
Yeah, I'm making a film about that, Magenta. It's called
you?
Templates. Yeah.
What's
so
it called?
Future Templates.
One.
That are already planting the seeds for that, for the way that we should be living, and that is very much, you know, also in community, of course. Not saying that you have to give up your private spaces or anything like that, but it's much more, you know, exchanging things. You know, I grow potatoes, you grow that. Let's exchange these things. And so that's what we're making a film about, to highlight this, in the hope that we can encourage people to follow suit with that.
Beautiful.
That's wonderful. I was just going to say, I do think that looking at these different eventualities, these different timelines to get to this ascension process that's absolutely set and going to happen, I don't know how fully central this is, but somewhere within this, for some people, possibly leaving their homes and living in communities or breakaway societies, I'm kind of seeing that as a potential for some people. I don't know if you are.
Yes.
You are.
Yes, I am as well. Very much so. And have been receiving the message that the physical union and reunion of certain soul groups will be necessary to support one another through anchoring that stable energy together. And we're doing that here. And then also eventually there will be that physical unification. Absolutely.
I see step one as sovereignty. You mentioned it in the first time we met, that we need to also really start saying, hey, we are free. You know, if we call the queen a sovereign, well, why can't I be a sovereign? You know, like, why am I supposed to follow laws that are completely against their anti-fifth dimensional consciousness? You know, so I think it's really important, and I'm going to do an episode about this in my series Exposed that I'm doing for Iconic Media, where we're talking about what are the practical ways that we can do this, because it's all nice to talk about it, but what can we practically do to organize ourselves to take these steps?
I agree completely. Sorry, Laura.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to quickly say, we all have the ability to create synchronicities or recognize synchronicities. When we're in the right chakras, we're able to see it. We're able to notice this support that is always guiding us and upgrading us to something better. When we're thrown into the survival chakra because of fear triggers, we're not able to think, we're not able to process, we're not able to see the synchronicities. We only see things that reinforce the fear, and our choices are incredibly limited because we're not operating from our fullness. We're not in our wholeness because we're being knocked off our center because of the anxiety and the past traumas that get ignited, like, you know, some of you were talking about. So if we can just consciously keep ourselves from going into the survival chakra, then everything we generate, everything we manifest, everything we communicate, and everything we do is going to align us with the frequencies of the divine magic and flow of the universe and cosmic and natural law and all the synchronicities connected to that, which will give us the alerts we need. Like you were talking about in our last roundtable, Nina, about, just that inner voice that said, you got to get out of, Paris or whatever. So that's all built into us, and we're encoded with just being able to, unite with soul family even more, get out of the things that are, really compromising us. And that's how we really are held by the Divine Mother, Father. And that's how we really ignite that inner template. And that increases in vibration. And that's going to invite other people to detach from the AI signals and connect with their own higher self. That will absolutely tell us what we need to do and where we need to go. And, people who are just addicted to the external and the external telling them what to do, who have lost, that connection, they have to realize in these times, this is a reunion. This is a welcoming home to your, true self. And what's being pulled away from us is our potential to step into the soul matrix on a collective level. But a lot of us are already vibrating there and beyond. So yeah, it's just going to be very important for, people to just stay in that frequency wave so that they're able to notice the path of navigating around these obstacles instead of getting caught in any further traps, because it really depends on what we're holding on to and what chakra we're occupying. I mean, ultimately, they need to all be integrated. And so, because I remember when I was living out of my vehicle, when I was in that feeling of I have no money and I felt sort of like a loser, then a lot of predatory forces would come my way. And then when I shifted my perspective and I was like, I'm a sovereign and abundant being and I'm in the light and this is perfect, I'm exactly where I need to be, I would pull money out of the ground and awesome people would show up and I made connections and life was sweet. And it was a simple perspective shift.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we were talking about that, Magenta, at me the other day, and we were talking about your 3-point plan or 3-step plan, where the initial step of, when you're living in your lower chakras, you deepen the emotions, you're in a reactive phase and you're processing all the stuff that you're coming across, especially if you're just waking up and you're learning about some of the negative things that are going on in the world. And then when you go up a chakra into the solar plexus, you start to step into your own power. And that's when you start to declare your sovereignty. And then you go higher up into the heart space, and the heart sort of connected with the higher chakras included. So you're then connected with the sort of 5th dimension and above. And that's when you can see things from an overall perspective of understanding that you're part of a unity consciousness, and you can see things from a higher view. And I find that, while I'm aware of the highest and can sometimes get there, I'm not there all the time. A lot of the time I'm down in my reactive everyday 3D physical world, just dealing with the everyday stuff. And it's difficult. So I totally get that.
You're both absolutely spot on with what you said. I asked the 9 the other day, where are the safe zones? Coming back to what Tara said about leaving no stone unturned. On the 3rd dimension, where can you go to be safe from these targets? And the 9 said the safe zone is within. The safe zone is within the 5th dimension. And why? Because of that stream of synchronicity that you were talking about, Laura. So, if you get a voice saying, someone's coming around your house in half an hour, get out, that sort of thing. And that has happened to me going back a few years. I mean, lots of years ago, like a good sort of 20 years ago. I remember driving a car and I did not have all of my paperwork in place for that car, let's say. And I was being a bit naughty because I had to go out. And I guess even then I was being not so much protected. What was actually happening was the trust that I was building with the 9 at that time. It wasn't really about protecting me from being told off by a police officer for not having my paperwork for the car. It was about the trust with the 9. And I remember this loud voice, pull over. And I listened and I pulled over, and then literally a few minutes later, this police car came past. Now, had I not pulled over, I might have been stopped and I would have been in a lot of trouble. And I'm just saying that, that's just one thing, that synchronistic stream. But like you said, Becky, you can't always live there all the time. And sometimes you can come out of that. And I think it's really good if you've got a twin flame connection going on, because what I'm finding in the soul connected relationship is if you're down in the third dimension in the lower chakras, your partner will potentially be well, this is what I see and don't worry, because, and they're up in the higher chakras and vice versa. And that nice support is something that is very valuable, I think, to us. It doesn't mean you can't have that if you're not in a relationship. You find that within yourself, and everyone is where they're supposed to be for this time. But that's something else to bring in, and I found that quite helpful when I've been really negative. Guess what I've just seen on Facebook? They're going to do this and they're going to do that, and then, you know, my husband will say to me, well, what were you saying half an hour ago? You know, you were magenta pixie half an hour ago, and now you've gone back to this person. And I'm like, oh, well, what did I say again? And then it's, oh yeah, yes, that, and then you raise up again. It's normal. It's human. Somebody wrote the other day on one of my comments to one of the videos, I think it was either in the previous roundtable, or it might have been one of the interviews I did with you, Laura, or you, Becky, where I was talking about sometimes doubting myself. I'm pretty sure it was our last roundtable, and someone said it was a real shock to see that you doubt yourself, Magenta. However, it made you somewhat human and relatable. Of course I doubt myself. I do not doubt the ascension process and the inevitability of it happening. I have no doubts on any level about that. But of course you doubt yourself sometimes. Of course you do. If you're doubting yourself all the time, then there's a problem. You've become lost, and you need to look at that. But it's normal, no matter how high you go in that raising of your vibration and that awareness, you are going to come into self-doubt at some point. It's not a failure when that happens.
Yeah. No, it's totally healthy, because if you weren't able to do that, because I go into it all the time, it's almost like a daily spiritual exercise to just move through these darker levels of self. I don't know if the word darker, but just these, but you know, it keeps one humble, and it's better to doubt the self, because it allows for receptivity, it allows for self-correction, it allows for things to take place that can reinforce the truth, because you're willing to, you know, kind of step back and say, well, you know, I mean, to me, it's an incredible, you know, virtue, because when I hear it coming from you, it's like I can see the beauty of it. When I'm kind of drowning in it myself, I'm like, come on, Laura, you know,
Same.
But the ones that are able to admit that or hold self-doubt to me are the humble ones, the ones that are clear channels and have a direct connect, because they, you know, it's the capacity to receive. If we're always so confident in everything, I feel like we put a big wall up. Sometimes I think it can be, you know, very dangerous to just have like ultimate confidence all the time. I mean, I think self-doubt has its place, just like fear has its place, to give us discernment, to give us caution. But if it's persisted, then yes, it can really bring us down and begin to impact our bodies. But I think it's, you know, a healthy thing, and it's a part of staying in alignment. It's just yeah.
Don't you find though, after we experience a moment of doubt, or however long it takes, that in swoops the higher dimensions and provides you with the most profound confirmation? You're like, oh God, thank God you're hearing me. Because I laugh at myself sometimes. I'm like, okay, just in case you didn't hear me, you know. Like,
Yeah.
that's
I actually had this happen to me recently. I had a really profound synchronicity regarding the Maxine. And I don't know, this might help people who are worried about this one thing, because I was just sitting there worried and thinking, gosh, how am I going to deal with it? And what Laura said, will my body be able to handle it if I'm forced to have it? And should I take herbs? And the nine spoke to me very clearly, and they said, do you want us to give you some synchronicity, some more? As if to say, we've given you so much already. Do you want some more? And well, yes, of course. You need to ask for it. So I sat there and I said, please, can I have some more synchronicity? And I didn't know I was going to, you know, they were asking me to ask them. And that doesn't happen very often. They leave me to ask on my own, but they asked me to ask them, and I did. And nothing really happened for about half an hour. And then my husband said to me, do you remember that game I told you about that I didn't get? What happened was when he was 15 years old. He entered a competition where you write for a magazine, and it's all to do with computer analysis and critique over a game. And the person who does the best critique on this game will win a game of their choice. And there were several games to choose from, and he was 15. So anyway, he won this competition in the magazine, Star Letter of the Month or whatever. And he was absolutely over the moon, a very humble person, didn't think he would ever win anything. And he was so happy, but he didn't get sent the game. And so he wrote to the magazine a while after and said, "You haven't sent me the game." And it still didn't come. And in the end, he just sort of let it go. And he never did receive the game. And he said to me, and this is just mind-blowing synchronicity. He said to me the other day, I was trying to remember what the game was that I didn't receive. Now, remember, he's 15. So this is like, I don't know, sort of 30 years ago. He's a child. And like 30 years later, he said, I've remembered the name of the game. And he showed me. And it's this 80s game. And it's actually called Maxine, obviously with a V. And it's actually spelt V-A-X-I-N-E. And I've been writing all my statuses on social media V-A-X-I-N-E, so that it's not picked up by the tagging. I said, "You're joking." And he said, "But don't you get it? I didn't receive the Maxine. I didn't get it." But the 9 had asked me half an hour before, "Do you want some more synchronicity?" My husband didn't know what was going on in my head between me and the 9. Half an hour later, he remembers the game he didn't get from when he was 15. Now, I know that might not seem that profound to someone outside, because it never does. But to us, in that moment, in that real time experiencing that, is that not a huge, huge sign that you will not get this?
Yeah, huge. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that's going to help people feel better.
I hope so, because I said to him, "Is this just for us or for everybody?" And I instantly thought, well, of course it's for everybody. Yeah. Because I'm someone who brings the messages from the 9 to everybody. So it wouldn't be just for me. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen for anyone. There may be people that do go and get these Maxines, but for those who don't want it and who are standing in that sovereign power and working with that synchronicity, I don't think they will. I just can't see that agenda working, and neither will I see the above the 4G. I don't see that working either.
I think we need to stand in our sovereign power without fear. It's the fear that's attracting the negative. We've got to be careful, and I know it's easier said than done, but we have to be careful to try and do this without attracting the fear.
Yeah, I mean, it creates entity attachments. It links us into the things that are harvesting our energies. We can't think clearly, from a place of fear. But I mean, we need to transmute the fear and remind ourselves that it's about remembrance right now. We're being pushed to the edge in order to remember who we are. We're not being pushed to the edge because we have to give our power away to some, false authority, and that we have no choice. It's probably going to be, pretty bumpy. But I mean, these kind of conversations, I mean, it's all about the throat chakra, the frequency of our words, like go out and ripple out to the, whole collective. And so keeping these conversations alive is huge, because it really counteracts a lot of what we get from the news, because people are externalizing things and what they are hearing, whereas conversations like this are really helping, people to feel met, like we're talking to their heart. We're not just sending information that's going to screw with their head. These reminders are what's going to lift us out of those attachments that keep us perpetuating this reality. It's an archonic infection, but we have to realize, like, if we're wounded as a humanity, we're either infected and get gangrene and have to operate in an artificial system, or we learn how to heal these wounds, transmute these wounds, and notice that the scar it might leave behind is actually a story of an unbelievably weird experience here on planet Earth.
Yeah, I want. It's so important to talk about, the safe place in 3D reality is within the heart. The heart is the stargate. It's the portal. So for everybody listening, if you have a moment of fear, remember, fear is a liar. It's an absolute liar, because you believe for a moment that you're separate from source. It's impossible. You can think you're separate. You in the idea of being separate, but you will never ever be separate. But how to get into that sine wave that you were talking about, Magenta, in your recent message, when you are in a state of coherence, and this is heart math that I teach, right? But your heart rhythms move into this beautiful sine wave. So when we can feel gratitude, and I only ever had audio once in meditation. One time have I ever heard it, and it was 3 words: meet me here. When you go here, you can feel the connection to source. You can feel the love of the mother, of the father. That is where heaven is. Heaven is within, and then it becomes without. And that's basically what we're creating right now. But
yes, so much yes to that. As we're all sitting here together, sharing our voices in this very powerful divine way, penetrating the collective with all of these seeds of love, I'm just seeing this amazing round table and this beautiful flaming heart of the sacred heart between us. And that is why it's also so important. Thank you, Magenta, for helping to get this wave out of bringing the divine feminine voices together through the round tables, because the diamond coded voices need to be heard into the resonance field of the frequency so that we help to shift the frequency on the planet. And we're doing that right now.
Well, it's Paula that's arranged this one, but we all feel that calling to gather with the divine feminine and present that voice. And as we said earlier, we are warriors, we are high priestesses, so we can have that heart, that nurturing, that wisdom, that higher connection. But you come for our children, and you will see the warrior.
Where we go one, we go all. I mean, you're starting to see this everywhere with the hue drops, right? Where we go one, we go all. It is an absolute beautiful thing. I mean, the protests in Berlin, like, people are rising. I think David Icke, didn't he write a book years ago called Get Off Your Knees or something?
Yes.
So, I mean, we're witnessing humanity is rising in their greatness, and we're rising together. Because I've seen different doctors from all over the world telling the truth about Maxine. And I've seen police officers saying, come on, guys, what do we sign up for? You know, and like, I think Judy is going to be waking up scientists, and they're going to be like, I think they're just going to walk away and walk out of that lab. And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, we have a homing beacon in every single one of our chakras, in every single cell in our body, in every single particle of our being. We have a homing beacon. And it will call us home to a particular place where we need to connect on the planet, with a particular community, with a particular energy resonance, with a particular place. And what you were saying about the gathering of the soul tribes, Nina, it's like, I mean, it's another thing that I've just seen happening for years. And we wanted to build eco villages, and we wanted to, you know, make all this possible, but it is happening. The seeds were planted, it is happening, and many of us will come together on that very foundational earthy level. And in every single one of our chakras, in every single one of our dimensions, is that homing beacon that when we just, even, you know what, even listening to a fear, I don't feel safe where I am right now. I think it's also worth not just believing every fear or reacting to it, but also listening and going, what's my real fear? Maybe I'm not in the right place. Maybe I feel afraid right now because something inside of me is telling me I'm not in the right place. I need to go somewhere else. I need to go and connect with other people, right? And to listen to, and you were talking about self-doubt, Magenta, and sometimes it's like, can I just be really, really open and listen to my self-doubt and listen to what the doubt is really telling me? And I can learn from that. You know, that's how we grow and learn, is also, so I'm not saying like one or the other, I'm just saying and also listen, and then not stay in it and move forward and connect to the other, to the bigger truth. But in every single thing is my experience, just as in the truth of everything is written everywhere, in every leaf, in every blade of grass, in everywhere. Yeah. That is written within us everywhere. And the homing beacon to come back home to that truth is also there in everything. And it is just sometimes just listening, whether it's through synchronicities, you know, that we're seeing externally, to the goose pimples we get on our arms when we hear truth, you know, to the dreams. That you have amazing dreams, Paula, and Christy, you see incredible visions, and, you know, all of these. For every single person listening, to just notice your own way that your homing beacon is working within you. Maybe you're an audio person or a visual person or a feely person, and it will come to you. And on every single level, we are returning home.
Yeah, the thing is, totally, everything that feels like adversity can bring us closer to ourselves. Even physical symptoms, it all has a message. And the cultural engineering, like the social engineering that's so embedded in our culture, causes us to want somebody else to solve it, somebody else to heal it, somebody else to diagnose it, and give us something to make it go away. And we get more and more disconnected from ourselves when it's actually an opportunity to get to know ourselves better. So if our body is sending off signals and we listen to it, then all of a sudden we're actually moving into a transformation instead of digging ourselves further and further into a place of disempowerment. So, you know, everything has the ability to bond us. So even if an argument comes up, if the true love is there, that argument isn't a fight. It's just maybe a conflict that can actually help people get to know each other better, understand each other better, and create a greater bond of love and harmony. Or for somebody who's not in a greater maturity, it can absolutely break them up. And it can be a power struggle, and it can be turning into hatred and toxicity. So every adversity is a choice we have to get, you know, and an opportunity to get to know ourselves better and what these messages, you know, are really bringing. And, you know, the sun started to move through Ophiuchus in 2010. They really wanted to enact what they're doing now and more around the 2012 window or 2010 time. And now they're trying to do it, but we've already had this anchored energy for long enough, and it's healing the mitochondrial DNA, which is connected to the fifth element, ether. And the DNA that connects us to spirit is something we all have, and it can absolutely override any dark weaponry. We are built, we were created this way to overcome these dark agendas. And that's why we only are compromised if we fall for the trickery. It's the fooling us that is the most dangerous part. Our ability to overcome it, that's a given. But are we being duped and fooled is where we need to ask the right questions.
We need to claim it. We have to claim the relationship with source, right? You have to be at some point. So if you sit on the fence, then you could be swept up.
Nature as well, that we are human, claiming that humanity and the power within the humanity. We're not as weak as we look. We're supremely powerful in our very nature.
And when we come together collectively.
Yeah.
Magenta, I'm kind of fascinated as well. You brought up the twin flame thing, and maybe this is a whole another conversation. And I think Chrissy mentioned it as well the last conversation. And I'm wondering what you were all thinking about how the twin flame reuniting relationships and healing relationships are connected to the return of the divine feminine back to her birthplace in this universe, back to her beloved. Has she been separated from her twin flame? I'd love that kind of a conversation. It's giving me goosebumps just talking about
well, the higher strands of our DNA are hierogamic union. The avatar consciousness is a hierogamic union template. So when we begin to connect with that level of our consciousness, the synchronicities and being connected with that because we found it within is going to draw those partners and those real authentic connections to us. And that is what unscrambles the fire codes, is to recognize that we are in this greater love story. We're divorcing ourselves from the imposters, and we're going to, you know, find, you know, this true love. And those archetypes are very much played out in fairy tales that we see, this happily ever after. But this is all in our DNA, all these different levels: alchemical marriage, the building of wings, hierogamic union takes us into the 12th strand and beyond. And you know, the mother energy, you know, is not separate from the father, but it's just needed attention and emphasis because of the dark mother reversals and all this sort of Baphomet worship and the satanic ritual abuses and the demonization of the feminine, the rewriting of a lot of ancient texts that have separated us from the true story of how this earth even came about. But yeah, you probably were asking Magenta, but that was my 2 cents.
No, I was asking
Laura. that's spot on. Exactly. The true twin flame is within, and is that merge. And then that's reflected outside of you. And I will say that it's very misunderstood in the New Age community. People think your twin flame is your partner. And then if things don't quite go right, you think, oh, they're not my twin flame. You can actually be in a relationship with someone for 10 years and not move into the twin flame potential until 10 years later. So just because you're with somebody right now that you might not be seeing the twin flame with, that doesn't mean that that's not going to come into your relationship later, because the twin flame is not a person. It's everything Laura said.
This makes a lot of sense, because what's come up recently is the understanding of the artificial twin flame program, which was created to really break a lot of hearts and really destroy a lot of our belief in love, and continues to put us in this kind of perpetual situation where you can be attracted to the same type, which is actually sent in to destroy you, used as like a fallen angel template to come in and present as these sort of artificial twin flame. And then there's this programmed belief that if I don't save them, or if we can't be together forever, I have failed my mission. And in the past week, this has just come in so clearly that that is absolutely an artificial program. Abuse is abuse. There are also people that are being used to sort of target you when they know the path that you're on and the role that you play. And we have to become aware of all of this. And part of it too is knowing yourself more. So if you know, they track us just as we track us. They know our weaknesses, they know our shadow, they know our heart's desires, and they know our role that we came here to play. So it's important to understand and see the shadow and the light aspect, and know your own weaknesses within that, where you need to be more discerning of, really, is this resonating as truth? And that comes from spending more time with yourself and merging with that twin flame within, that divine masculine feminine union, and maintaining your space at that altar, and allowing others around you to rise up and meet you there. If we're talking about like an intimate romantic relationship, that's the message I've been receiving, is when you get to that place, you don't keep leaving your altar and running around, you stay right there, because that's where someone is going to meet you. And it's in that unification of divinity that resonance is able to come into your life as an outer reflection of what you have already cultivated within.
There's that story, Nina. I'm sorry, my lovely. Just quickly, that's exactly the story that I went through that made me realize that I wasn't loving myself. And that's what brought me on the path to profound self-love and transformation. Of course, it's always going to be a path, it doesn't end.
Yep.
But that's what turned it around. So I'm super grateful for that. And in the self-love, there is everything. Love thyself, love everything. Thank you.
Boundaries. Then you know how to have boundaries, because we either are opening dark portals for archons to come in when our sexual energies are tied into something that's not authentic, or we're stargates, and the alchemy that happens with true love is what is actually healing the planet. Sorry, go ahead, Magenta.
I just wanted to say, just add, it's nothing to do with sexuality or gender either. So people will think, oh, it's male, it's female. And it's not. It's nothing to do with sexuality. It's nothing to do with your gender. You can still have that merge between the divine feminine and the sacred masculine within you, and manifest that within your life regardless of your sexuality or your gender. So I just wanted to put that in.
I wanted to add two things. I actually remember the day I'm like, oh my God, I love me. Oh my God, love with me. I had that moment, and then it was like everything healed. So I guess I'm just looking at the time. You probably should wrap up, but I wanted to add one thing for all the gentlemen and ladies that are listening. We have to remember that the way that you get into this planet is through the body of a woman. Everybody has to come through that portal to be birthed into this reality. And I guess the number one thing is look to the real. Turn to the love in the heart and look to the real. If you're stressed out, take a break from media, go be in nature, enjoy the beauty, listen to the wind, be in water. Yeah. Anybody else want to end with some?
Just one other practical thing. So if you're doing a round table, look in the text and email it to me, and I'll upload it onto the channel. So if anyone else who's watching is doing their own round table. So that's just a practical note.
Thanks, Chrissy. It's brilliant that you're doing that.
We'll make sure we add that for sure and get that out to anybody. Anybody else want to add some last minute thoughts to support our wonderful planet and the awakening of their divine nature?
Yes, just remember again that love is the most powerful frequency and force, and love always trumps fear. And use sound healing at this time, because if you're being attacked in your frequency, listen to the sounds of dolphins. You know, most of us can get on a phone even if you're not able to get into nature. For me, it was a lifesaver in Paris, and it actually helped me to elevate myself in the midst of frequency attack, which was just listening to the dolphins. And all of a sudden, through that frequency shift, I could suddenly go right back to 5D and up. So I think that's really important to remember, is just if you're feeling attacked, if you're feeling low, shift your frequency and use the tools to do so. And music is an amazing tool to lift you higher or also to bring you down. So be careful what you're listening to at the same time. Most all mainstream pop is made to bring down your frequency and lower your vibration, and to continue to put in those programs that instill and feed that frequency. That's what I wanted to share.
You know, I totally agree. And one of the ways the biggest way that they do that, well, one of the ways they do that is by shifting the tuning of that music from a natural tuning where in the old sort of olden days, music was tuned by ear and what felt right, and with more natural music instruments, and where it was tuned to a frequency of 432 hertz. That was a much more natural frequency. The pop music, and it was actually Goebbels. It's one of the friends of Hitler who checked back in the 1940s or 1938 or something, changed the frequency tuning where A is tuned to 440 hertz, and that just makes it it's a frequency that's just discordant. So I totally agree. That's one way that they've done it.
Yeah, they've tuned down the heart. So they try to play this music that actually tunes you away from the heart. Yeah. And Hitler knew that, so he created a sound frequency that would cause the soldiers to march faster and want to kill more, and essentially would turn them into a state of separation and want them to become more AI and robotic in their nature. So it's important for us to remember to go towards the organic, natural sounds. And the dolphins are amazing frequency generators on this planet. And when we listen to that, it activates that star-seeded template within our cellular 12-strand rainbow helix DNA.
Yeah. So I agree. My father was an opera singer. And he used to sing when my mother was pregnant with me, and he would sing to her tummy. And then when I was born, and all through my growing up, he would just burst into song, and he was a brilliant, brilliant tenor. So I grew up without knowing, the constant tuning of the operatic male tenor voice on a daily basis. So everything you're saying about sound is very, very true.
Yes, it really helps to upgrade the DNA. And we have to remember we're earth, air, fire, water, ether. And we each have, our own unique maps of what we might feel more of an affinity towards when it comes to a different elemental. But I mean, we're really here to purify our egos and to move out of the duality so that we can begin to understand that we are a representation of nature. Our DNA is connected to the earth grids, the multidimensional cosmos, our galactic chakras as well. I mean, we are the wholeness of this full picture. And when we do the inner work and we do the healing work, then we're actually clearing the elementals of the planet. When we're moving beyond the mind control, we're actually collapsing and neutralizing these dark weapons. And when we begin to vibrate at a frequency that has overcome all these different things, recognizing that they can be tools for our growth instead of weapons of destruction, then we are no longer a victim to it. We're actually turning their weapons into a tool and disabling it from having such a toxic effect. And so we have it within us to, do this. And it's just amazing to just look at the natural world. Maybe camping isn't for everybody, but just looking out the window, paying attention to, the flowers and the animals that cross your path. The medicine is always there and available. It's encoded in nature that when there's an injury, there's a healing response. Even if our life is injured, there's a healing response, some sort of synchronicity of an upgrade, of something better coming in. But we hang on so much to the heartbreak and to the feeling of loss or failure that we can't even greet the new reality that's awaiting. So I just want to say to people, allow what feels like an injury to become a discovery in how to work with the medicines of the earth, your own connection with source that can heal and transmute and alchemize anything. And this is how we're going to enter, higher earth energies that are beyond, this gaping wound we are all born into. But we all have a piece in mending that wound and stitching it together by doing what we got to do for ourselves and amplifying the soul connections and the importance of that, and really dropping the label so that we can see the beauty in all of us, no matter what our differences are, no matter who's more awake or not. We all have a responsibility to each other to hold love, compassion, understanding, and patience. And then these tyrannical forces will be losing their food source, wondering why we're all gathering together and we're not obsessing over, what they're telling us to do. And so it's just a big reunion, and I feel like there's a lot to celebrate. So it's not going to be comfortable or easy, but when we're in a vibration of gratitude and celebration, we get great ideas like creating roundtables together, and we get to, also be really real. And there's no shame in the shadow stuff. There's no shame in anger or depression. We can't judge those things. It's a part of the greater initiation. We'll move through it a lot quicker if we don't judge it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Wow.
Wonderful.
I think what we'll do also is, as a collective, we'll share amongst ourselves our music healing that has worked for us, and then we'll share that on the link for the YouTube so that folks can have access, because I've got dolphin and whale music too that is so helpful, and we'll share that so that everybody else can find some reprieve. So I guess at this point we're going to wrap it up, ladies. So thank you so much. God bless all the mothers on the planet. God bless all the children from within and without. And we are here to create freedom for all of our brothers and sisters, no matter where they are, what color they are, what God they pray to, what direction. This is the time of the rise of the human being, and it's a spirit of
This
love.
is a collective coming together, and this round table and everyone who's watching, it's not just us, it's everyone watching us as well in that energy, and it's really full of divine love. We all love everyone within that collective, and that's the world we're going to actually see on a daily basis when we move into this new earth.
Yes, and we got to bring out the magical child. Let yourself play, let yourself have fun, let yourself generate the joy that you're capable of in the now. That's always there for us, and that will absolutely ward off a lot of these dangers and threats, I feel.
Yes.
Wonder. Okay, so God bless humanity. We love you. We love you.